I should have walked away the moment she screamed it. "You tried to murder me." Mascara running down her cheeks, white smoke billowing out of the grill she'd proudly lit in front of 30 neighbors. But I didn't walk away. I just held my camera steady because that exact moment, the explosion of panic, the way her voice cracked the look on everyone's faces, that was the moment I'd been planning for 3 long months, and I had every second of it recorded. 3 months earlier, I had pulled my pickup truck into the driveway of 23 Maple Grove Lane, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: hope. The house wasn't big, but it was mine. After 6 years of cramped apartments, wedding edits at 2 a.m., and neighbors banging on the walls, I thought I'd finally found peace. Suburban quiet. Predictability. A place where my camera gear wouldn't get stolen off the fire escape. As I carried boxes inside, I saw the HOA handbook the previous owner had left for me. 47 pages. I skimmed through it, half laughing at the rules, grass height, paint colors, mailbox angles, and a whole highlighted section on outdoor cooking equipment. I didn't think much of it. Rules were fine. I could follow rules. Then, at exactly 8 in the morning, less than 24 hours after I moved in, she showed up. Diane Pritchard, HOA president. Blonde bob, cut designer blouse, perfect manicure clipboard in hand, smile that looked friendly until you noticed it didn't reach her eyes. She talked like she was welcoming me to an art gallery she owned, not standing on my doorstep. And before I knew it, she was circling my house like a shark, writing down violations I'd never even heard of. My front door paint was apparently 2% off the approved shade of Navajo white. My grass was already approaching unacceptable height. The mailbox had micro rust. She handed me 3 written warnings and $75 in fines before she even learned how to pronounce my last name. I should have realized then this woman didn't enforce rules, she enforced power. But I told myself it was fine. First week in a new place, maybe she was just thorough. Then Saturday rolled around and I set up my $1, $200 Traeger grill on the concrete patio exactly as the handbook described, 15 feet from the house, clear of vegetation, every requirement met. I invited my neighbor Vanessa, a property lawyer, and when she saw the grill, she raised her eyebrows and said, "Diane doesn't like smoke." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Because the very next Monday, a violation showed up for operating unapproved outdoor cooking equipment. Total nonsense. Portable grills weren't prohibited. I checked every line in the handbook twice. But I paid the $50 anyway because at that point, I didn't want war. And because I was naive enough to think the first notice would be the last. It wasn't. Every single Monday, a new violation arrived. My truck was parked at a 5-degree incorrect angle. My planters were non-neutral tones. My garden hose was left partially uncoiled, each fine more ridiculous than the last. That's when I started documenting everything, taking photos with timestamps, screenshots, measurements. If she wanted to play games, I could play too. Then the grill disappeared. I walked outside with my coffee one morning expecting to wrap a brisket, and it was just gone. Vanished. I reported it to the police, but the officer basically shrugged and suggested security cameras. I bought a new grill that same afternoon, added locks, and told myself it had to be some random thief. But deep down, I already suspected the truth. A week later, I found footprints in the mulch bed. Women's athletic shoes, size 7 or 8, walking straight from Diane's yard to mine and back again. That night I sat in my living room with my telephoto lens pointed at the backyard. At 2:17 a.m., a figure in dark clothes and a hood slipped through my fence line like she'd done it before. She went straight to my shed, took my grill tools, a bag of charcoal, and when the hood fell back for those 3 perfect frames, I saw her face. Diane, the HOA president. The same woman who fined me for leaving a hose uncoiled was stealing from my yard in the middle of the night. I had her, but I didn't stop there. I bought 4 security cameras, mounted them high, covered every angle, recorded every second to cloud storage. And she kept coming. 4 more thefts, each caught in HD, from cushions to lanterns to a propane tank. And then, at 3:08 a.m. on a Thursday, she showed up with bolt cutters snapping through the lock on my new $1,500 Weber Summit, dragging it across my yard and through the fence. I didn't stop her. I filmed her. From 4 angles, every step, every motion. Pure, undeniable evidence. Then came the moment that changed everything when her garage door was left open for 20 minutes. Inside, I saw my missing Traeger, the dent I'd photographed when I bought it. I saw a red Toro mower, a wrought iron bench, handmade garden gnomes. It was a museum of stolen property, a collection she'd been building for years. And every neighbor I later showed those photos to recognize something. So I took my evidence to the HOA meeting. Imagine a room of 35 neighbors, fluorescent lights, folding chairs, and Diane sitting there in her navy blazer like a queen at her throne. I plugged in my laptop, hit play, and let the videos run. The room went dead silent as Diane appeared on all 4 camera feeds, stealing from my yard again and again. When I showed the photos of her garage, 3 neighbors stood up, each recognizing something stolen from them. And still she denied everything, called my footage fake, claimed I had an agenda. But the board saw the truth. They suspended her on the spot. And that should have been the end. Except Diane wasn't the kind of person who lost quietly. She started attacking my career. Anonymous messages to my clients. Rumors posted in neighborhood groups. 3 weddings canceled on me within 48 hours. $15,000 gone. And for the first time since I moved there, I sat at my desk and thought, maybe I should stop. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I'm ruining my own life just to prove a point no one wants to hear. I felt small, defeated, stupid for thinking evidence alone could beat someone like her. I actually considered moving. I even packed 1 box. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed thinking, what if she wins? What if this is just the kind of person you can't fight? Then I remembered the elderly man who told me his mower disappeared 2 years ago. The couple who moved away because Diane made their lives hell. The neighbors who'd been bullied into silence. And something in my chest clicked. Not anger exactly, but something cold and sharp. If Diane wanted to use stolen property to boost her ego, then she was going to pay the full price of that decision. That was the night I started researching theatrical smoke powders, stage effects, heat triggers, safe legal dramatic. I bought everything from different stores in cash, tested each component 3 times, documenting every step like the photographer I am. I modified a brand new Weber grill, installed the smoke charges beneath the cooktop, and calibrated the trigger at a heat level that would activate about 8 to 10 minutes after lighting. Not dangerous, not harmful, just loud, bright, smoky, and terrifying enough for someone who didn't know the science behind it. Then I placed the grill in my backyard, clean, shiny, with a handwritten note that said, "Test fire for Johnson wedding shoot." And right on schedule, 11:37 a.m., Diane took the bait. She marched straight into my yard in broad daylight and stole it. Again. This time the cameras caught the whole thing in crystal clarity. She had no idea the real show was still coming. 4 days later was the community BBQ she'd announced in the group chat. Her big attempt to reclaim her spotlight, her last little power move. 30 neighbors showed up to her backyard, kids running around. 2 news vans parked outside because the previous meeting had already gone viral. And right there in the center of the patio was my grill, my modified grill, like a trophy. I stood near the back with my camera, acting casual. My neighbor, the attorney, whispered, "She has no idea, does she?" And honestly, watching Diane strut around in her white sundress, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending she wasn't suspended and under investigation, it was almost comical. Almost. At 2:45 p.m., she clapped her hands, announced it was time to light the grill, and made this big dramatic show of pouring charcoal into the bowl. She doused it in lighter fluid, struck a match, and dropped it in like she was starring in a cooking show. People clapped. I checked my watch. 8 minutes. At 6 minutes, I focused my lens. At 7 minutes, a few people noticed the faint hiss. At 8 minutes and 30 seconds, it happened. A sharp pop echoed from inside the grill, then another. Then thick white smoke blasted out of every vent, rolling across the patio like fog on a movie set. Inside the chamber, the sparklers ignited bright white flashes, rapid crackling pops. Kids screamed, adults stumbled backward. Someone yelled for water, someone else knocked over a whole table. And Diane froze, her perfect sundress streaked with grass hair frizzing from the heat, mascara melting in black rivers. She looked at the grill like it had betrayed her personally. Then she spun toward me and screamed, voice cracking loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. You did this. You tried to kill me. You rigged my grill." And just like that, just like flipping a switch, she confessed in front of 30 people that the grill was hers. A grill I had video of her stealing 5 days earlier. The crowd turned on her instantly. The elderly man stepped forward and said he'd seen her pushing it through her fence. Another neighbor said her husband worked in theater and recognized the smoke as totally harmless. Someone else shouted, "Wait, is that my bench from last year?" Diane realized what she'd done. I saw it hit her. The horror, the math, the trap snapping shut. She literally ran back into her house, slamming the door so hard it rattled the windows. People whispered, filmed, took photos. The accountant walked up to me with the expression of a man who'd just witnessed a natural disaster and said, "We need another board meeting." 2 nights later, the room was packed. News cameras in the back. 40-plus residents. Diane sitting stiffly beside her attorney. And me with my laptop and 2 cases full of evidence. I laid out the entire timeline, every theft, every clip, every angle. The garage photos, the lists from 7 other households who'd identified their stolen belongings, $27,000 worth of property, and for once, Diane couldn't talk her way out of it. When the board voted to permanently remove her and refer everything to the police, she didn't argue. She just sat there silent, staring at the table, the weight of her own actions finally pressing down on her. And that's where my story ends. Not with a celebration, not with a victory speech, just with silence. Diane walked out of that meeting with her head down and never looked at me again. But as I packed up my equipment that night, I realized something simple, something sharp and true. You can't hide who you really are forever. Sooner or later, the smoke always reveals the fire.